万门大学的小伙伴们，大家好，我是兰斐利博士，是莱特研究大学的应用神经科学教授。今天我很荣幸介绍 Judith 博士讲他第7个亲密互动的规则，就是假设对方是好意。这个规则可能是最难的。假设好意不仅仅会对我的帮助，也会影响到他人对我的行为和对待。我是亲自通过来中国的时候来意识到这个现象。我们先去听 Judith 老师讲更深入的关于这个第7个亲密互动的规则。
In relationships, it's always a good idea to have some rules of engagement that help us navigate sometimes the troubled waters of relationship, but also help us get more out of the relationships. And it's how we treat one another and having some guidelines for how we can be the best we can with one another and bring out the best in ourselves and those that we're relating to. So we've been talking in other episodes about the rules of engagement. In this episode, we're working with rule number 7, which is to assume goodwill. Assume goodwill. What does that mean and why is that important? Well, if you think about it, oftentimes when we're upset or we're hurt or angry or afraid in relationship with someone, it's easy to sometimes think that someone has it out for you, that they don't have your best interests in mind. They just want something for themselves. Or perhaps we think maybe they want to take advantage of us or use us in some way, or even maybe hurt us. Sometimes we expect bad from other people. We think that they have ill will toward us, want to hurt us or take advantage of us, and don't recognize the possibilities that maybe that's not true. So it's something to look at, because sometimes, and there's one couple that we were working with in our coaching in our couples program, and they represent this rule in the heart of the fight in the engagement chapter. Because what happened for them is that they were actually pretty deeply in love, but when they didn't quite understand each other, because they would oftentimes get their feelings very hurt. The woman felt like the man was only interested in her physically, that he only wanted physical intimacy, and that would hurt her feelings because she wanted to be accepted and loved for all of her. And then if she didn't respond to him in a way that made him feel affirmed or affectionate, he felt rejected. So they both started to assume that he only wanted one thing from her and that she didn't love him and that they didn't care about one another, and it wasn't true at all. They actually loved each other very much and really wanted the best for each other, but they had to work toward that because their feelings were so hurt and they were so angry that they'd become in a heated argument, and they would fight about this and didn't remember, didn't really hold in their hearts that this was their best friend that they were with. They thought that each other was trying to reject them or take advantage of them. And the more they assumed that ill will, the quicker their fights would flare. They would just quickly get into fights that didn't get resolved. When they started to work with this rule, to assume goodwill, maybe my husband does love me and cares about me more than just physically, she started to think. And he started to think, well, maybe she doesn't understand that I really do care about her as a person, and I need to feel loved and affirmed myself. When they started to share more intimately about what it is they really yearned for, what they cared about, what they needed from one another, they could see that they actually did have goodwill for one another, and they stopped getting into that tussle about having ill will and thinking the other one didn't love them or really didn't want to please them, because underneath it all, they did, but they were hurt and they were angry. Well, these kinds of things can happen in relationships all the time. Perhaps you think your boss doesn't want the best for you, or a coworker you might be jealous of, or they might be jealous and competitive with you. And you might think that maybe they don't wish you well. And even if that was the case, it's still extremely important to assume an attitude that this person has goodwill toward me. This person has my best interest. This person is not trying to hurt me. Because chances are that can unlock the relationship and make changes. So as we look at this, it's like, remember that your partner, your teammate, your friend, your coworker is someone that you know and perhaps even care about or have history with, and then rather assuming ill will and turning your boss and coworkers or your friends into the ugly stepmother and the ugly stepsisters, and assuming that they have evil intent, to really let them be who they really are. Speak to them as if they're intelligent human beings who want the best for themselves and also for you and for the team or the company or your whole friendship network. They're not like the agent of the evil empire. They don't have to be the enemy. They're just people, and to really remember that. And sometimes that's hard, because not only do we sometimes suspect bad motives from other people, sometimes we don't know that we can expect goodness from other people. In some ways, that was my relationship with my husband, Bob. Early in our relationship, I didn't trust that he really wanted to know me, that he'd want to know the things that hurt me, that he would be interested in the pain that I would have sometimes, or my hurt feelings. And so I wouldn't tell him, and I assumed that he didn't want to know. But I would still be mad at him. My feelings would be hurt, and I didn't know what to do. So I'd write in my journal, and I'd write, "I'm so angry at Bob. He doesn't understand me." I'd write it in my journal. And then I would leave it out on a table out in the living areas, where I didn't realize I was leaving it out. So I was hoping that he would read my journal and read the things that I hadn't had the courage to say to him directly. And eventually he did, and he took what I wrote, and he came to me, "Why didn't you tell me this?" He understood me. He cared about what it was I was talking about. He was upset that I thought that he was so mean, and he explained what was going on, and I had no idea. It moves me right now to talk about. I had no idea that he would really be interested in what I really felt, and that I could have said that directly to him. So I assumed ill will. I didn't assume the goodness that he had. I didn't know that I deserved or was worthy of the love and care that he so generously had for me. I had to learn that there was way more goodwill there than I was used to or that I expected. And it was very difficult for me to trust that he would want to do things for me. I would go to the grocery store, and I'd have many, many bags of groceries, and I'd come back in my car, and I would unload it was trip after trip, unloading the car, and he would come in and he said, "Why didn't you ask me to help you with that?" I said, "I didn't think you'd want to." So I assumed that he wouldn't want to help me when he very much wanted to help me. So that caused problems until I could understand that I deserved to be supported, that he did have goodwill toward me. He loves me very much and wanted to help me, and that I was keeping that from happening. And as I understood that and really assumed that he does really, and he does deeply care about me as I do him, and to let that be more where I could let him know more, and I could ask for more and trust that he did have my best interests at heart. And he really has my best interest at heart, and I was keeping it at a distance. So at many levels, assuming ill will can play out in a lack of trust or lack of openness, or not getting what we need and want in relationships. And it's something we can all work toward. And it's an extremely important thing. Even if your friend is not that good-spirited, or maybe a coworker is kind of jealous and competitive, or maybe there's other people in your life that you think don't have a good attitude towards you, still assume goodwill. Treat them as if they have kindness in their heart and that they want the best for you. And oftentimes it starts to shift the dynamics of the relationship because they respond to that. So assuming goodwill is extremely important, that people are not always out to get you. They really oftentimes want the best for you, and we need to give them a chance. At the Right Foundation, we use life assignments where couples and individuals and singles practice these different assignments in their life. And this past week, what they were doing is asking for things. It was their job for 1 week to practice asking for things from friends, from coworkers, from bosses, from loved ones, from complete strangers, from people in restaurants, to someone on the street, just to practice asking and to risk the possible rejection. And most people say, "Oh, nobody's going to want to give me anything. I'm going to be humiliated. I'm going to be rejected." And when they came back after a week of practicing this, they were really amazed how many people wanted to support them. They were given free drinks at the restaurants, and some people even asked for a raise, and their bosses were considering giving them more money. They asked for favors from friends. They asked their friend to help them move from an apartment to an apartment, and they gladly showed up to support them. They asked for free refills. They asked for gifts. They asked people to open the door for them. They asked for so many things, and found out that the world really did, for the most part, really wanted to support them and to help them. There was so much goodwill in the world than they were aware of, and that little experiment really proved that to them, that there is more goodwill than we think. And even if someone doesn't have that, again, if we treat them as if they have goodwill, it starts to soften the possibilities, and they may respond to that goodness, and that makes for richer and better relationships. So we don't need to turn our friends and others and coworkers and our loved ones into the enemy. It's just possible that they could be a real ally for us if we can practice again and again to assume goodwill, not make fights where they don't need to be, and bring out the best in ourselves and all the people that we relate to. So rule number 7, assume goodwill and bring more goodwill to you and give more goodwill back out into the world.